I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:02. Sorry, I didn't realize it was 2 minutes after. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Where is, oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong direction. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Approval of agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda and then we can make changes.
So moved.
Thanks, Liz. Second? Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, Sam. No, it's fine. I have one change. I had meant to put the meeting time change discussion on the agenda, but it got missed. So I was going to put it down and transact other legal business, if that's okay with people. I don't know if anyone else has any other changes or... Okay, then I'll just call the question. Are we approving the agenda? Please raise your hand if... Okay, thank you. We will move on to public input and announcements. Maria, you said you had an announcement?
I do, but I need to call up the information, so I'm going to be...
Okay.
Well, it was, but I can do that really quick right now.
Okay, no problem.
So, and I can follow up afterwards. I just wanted to remind everybody, we had a great community conversation a couple weeks ago already, and our next one is going to be on the 15th, which is before the next board meeting, so I just wanted to make sure people knew. It's on the 15th at 6:30 p.m. And if you bear with me seconds more, I can tell you who will probably be there. And that will be November 15th. Right now it says Asha, Liz, Andrea with Sam and Adrian as possible backups. And it was great. It's a time when you can talk to people on the board and we can have a conversation and you can ask, what were you thinking when you said that, or you made this decision, or what was that decision based on, or I've heard this and it worries me, can you speak to that? And it doesn't mean we can always answer those questions, but it puts it on our radar as something that people are concerned about, and it also gives us a chance to look up the answer for later, possibly get back to you. That definitely happened at the last one. So I really encourage people. Public comment is important, and then you get more of the board at once, and you make sure that we hear what you have to say. This is more give and take. You don't get as many board members, but definitely what you say is considered and is brought back when we're coming to ask questions and make decisions later in meetings.
What time is that meeting?
It's at 6:30 p.m. and it's virtual. So there'll be an announcement that goes out, but if you write to me, I will make sure that you get a link for it.
Wow, okay. Sorry. Thank you. Loud noise. Thank you, Maria. I just wanted to say that we are on our first meeting of the month schedule, so there's only 2 speakers, so there's no reason to limit people's time to, beyond the 3 minutes that we try and give people. But just that we will be trying very hard to be done with the board business, general business by 8 o'clock, and we will start working on our goals again at 8 o'clock. So, first person on the list to speak is Ken Fredette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm Ken Fredette from Wallingford. I come tonight because I was taken by 2 commentaries in the Rutland Herald last Friday, October 29th. While neither was specific to Mill River, there were snippets that describe behaviors at board meetings as of late on both sides of the table that I feel compelled to share. And this is not just here. This is happening all over the country. The first commentary is by Vermont Secretary of State Jim Kondos. It is really more about threats to our democracy through cyber attacks, but some of it is applicable to the ongoing harassment of this board by a handful of community members abusing the right to speak at open meetings that is provided for by statute. Secretary Kondos writes, "Red or blue, it doesn't matter. How can we expect to have civil conversations When strolling around us everywhere we turn, we see conspiracy theories, offensive memes, and outright lies designed to warp our own perspectives of the democratic process until we turn on ourselves. And later he writes, at best, bad actors push false rhetoric that leaves us badly informed. At worst, disinformation and deliberately misleading malinformation leads to abusive and threatening behaviors. Just below that commentary is another one on the same page, Friday's paper, pretty cool, by Nick Fisher, that is focused on providing supports for students with special needs. Mr. Fisher described himself as having been a public educator for 50 years across 8 states, including a year working with the Washington Central Unified Union District here in Vermont. He writes, in part, if children are to be well served in Vermont, several issues must be addressed. The superintendency is not a popularity contest. Board members should not be seen as being responsive to only the loudest, most persistent voices. Decisions will be made that will make people angry. Local control and community participation are highly valued in Vermont. Boards must learn not to be played by unhappy employees, and I will add to that myself, or citizens. And if you take anything away from what I'm saying here tonight, please take this. I'll go back to Mr. Fisher now, quoting him. Boards need to allow superintendents to be the chief executive officers they are hired to be. They need to stay out of personnel and operational issues that are the province of superintendents. Boards are designed to focus on policy, budget, and hiring the superintendent. As I've said many times, focus on what's best for the kids, and everything else will fall into place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken.
You can keep the paperclip, Bruce.
Thanks. Always use a paper.
When we get done with public comment, I'm going to put the sheet back over there. This is meant to be filled out for contact tracing in case there's any kind of a COVID or any other outbreak, and there's only 5 people signed up. So if you haven't signed up, just give us your contact information. I'll put it back over there. Christine Billings? Hi.
Hi.
You are up.
I have item 1 on here that I'm not going to talk. I just
everywhere
put it on there, guys. For board goals, I'd really appreciate it if you guys could keep the keep or increase the proficiency goals for reading and math, so we can get up higher in the groupings across the state. And I also wanted to touch base with thank you for creating the ad hoc committee for figuring out why families are leaving our district. Board members who were not at the meeting last night, please understand that some of us would like a third party to conduct and compile the surveys. This is not a process we feel comfortable having the involvement of the administrative staff. In 2019, there were 2 surveys given. One survey was given to community members for parents about the 6th grade move to the high school building and busing 6th through 12. We were promised to see the results of these surveys, and the results were withheld. The other survey was conducted by the NEA on teacher satisfaction. We were not promised the results of that survey, however, the teachers never received the results either. For these reasons, we do not feel administration would maintain the transparency necessary to provide accurate information on why families have left or may leave. If the ultimate goal is to get meaningful results, that we will improve the district, please consider a neutral party to conduct and compile the survey. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine. I'll answer one of the things that you brought up. The NEA conducted that survey, and the NEA kept the survey. The board never saw the survey either.
Okay.
Just so that's clear.
You never saw it either?
Excuse me?
You never saw it either?
No, we absolutely did not. I don't know if the teachers did or not.
Okay.
But the board was never apprised of what the survey showed. So, just to take that one off us.
All right.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. Does anybody else have any other comments to add?
Me?
Okay.
I didn't hear you.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Well, actually, I was talking to the other board members, but if another public wants to have a comment, go ahead.
Yes, Art Peterson, Clarendon. I'd like to talk today about why some of us are very concerned about the teaching of critical race theory in our school district. And I want to go through a couple of steps here. First, I want to talk about why we are worried about it. What brings it out? What does this school do that brings it out? First thing is, we fly in a flag that represents a very liberal, left-leaning school. Okay, we chose to honor a request to fly a flag that represents an organization that's left-leaning. And when that starts, you say, huh, I wonder what's underneath that. Next thing is, the district trains with a trainer who's a proponent of critical race theory, Lavelle Brown. Okay, that training went on. You've seen the slides that are pretty radical in terms of what it professes between black, white, and all that. Further training's taking place in December, so he's not done. He's coming back. I guess the board's been invited, and it is for the leadership team here. And fourthly, our superintendent made a podcast with Lavelle Brown and seems to be in agreement with almost everything he says. So with that as a backdrop, we sit here and think, well, what is being taught here? But we have assurances. Okay, what assurances have we had? Ms. Stewart Rock, curriculum coordinator, has told us at a previous meeting that it is not being taught. That's fine, I take her at her word. Mr. Younts, in his written testimony last time, said, and I quote, "Our teachers can affirm clearly for you that CRT is not taught in our schools," which I get and believe. So what would make, at least me, and I'm sure many others, be assured that teachers aren't teaching it in the classroom? So what I want to do is I want to hand this out to you. Light them up if I can, Bruce. There you are. You hand them around. So, let me have one of them. Sorry about that. I'm supposed to keep one, because I'm going to read it, okay? What I think we should do, or should be done by the administration, is to craft a letter, and this is my look at it. These are my words. The words can be changed, certainly. I mean, they can be made up to be what this board, the administration, the superintendent, the principals want to convey. But let me just read it. To the MRUUSD staff, the use of the ideology known as critical race theory by teachers in the classroom within the MRUUSD is prohibited. The training that staff members received earlier this year from Lavelle Brown was for your own benefit as it relates to your personal and professional growth, any personal biases and blind spots you may have. Hopefully it will translate to your improvement in instructing all students you engage. It was not meant for teachers or other staff to, 1, divide students by race, 2, deride one racial group in favor of another, 3, call any group oppressors and another group oppressed, and 4, use language in the classroom that makes any racial group feel bad about who they are. Terms such as white privilege, white supremacy, white fragility, cultural fragility, and others similar will not be used in the classroom. Open and honest, factual discussion about the history of race relations in America when teaching history, social studies, and civics courses is encouraged and expected. So, to me, to help us feel like teachers are getting it, some sort of communication to the staff, I think, would be appropriate. And I'll tell you why. As a state legislator, pardon me?
30 seconds.
Okay. As a state legislator, I was called to another district by some parents, very concerned that their students had been taught some critical race theory stuff. The board said absolutely not, it wasn't done, but they said, yes, this teacher is teaching it. we've got to get to the teacher. We've got to make sure the teachers know what's expected of them. And that comes through this type of a correspondence. The other thing is yearly or every other year evaluations of teachers. Yeah, and I would just ask that you get back to me with some response on this. So thank you very much.
Garrett? Any comment? Okay, we'll move on. Approval of the minutes from 9:25. Do I have a?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second? Thank you, Doug. Are there any changes or corrections? That was the Saturday meeting. Was it the Saturday meeting, or it was a goals meeting? I don't remember if it was the agenda. Okay. So no changes? Okay. Call the question, do we approve the minutes from 9:25 as presented? Please raise your hand. Bruce? Are you still reading the minutes, or are you good? Okay. Okay. Now we are looking at the minutes for 10/20/2021. Thank you, Liz. Okay. And Len seconded. Are there any changes, additions, subtractions?
I've got a question.
Okay.
On 15, it may be just semantics, but it says, under ad hoc committee regarding student retention, the discussed charge was to write the questions to be asked. It doesn't say that's what the charge was. It says the discussed charge. Do we vote on it and make that the charge, or was it just the discussed charge?
Well, no, I did ask, we did not formally vote. I said, is everybody okay with that? And there was acquiescence. If we would like to re-vote on that, or perhaps when we have the report from the ad hoc committee, we can.
Which you'll get tonight.
Finalize that. Okay. So are we okay with the minutes, though?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? All right, I'll call that question. Are we approving the minutes as presented and clarified, I guess, of 10:20? Thank you. All right.
Just
Now.
to know, I'm abstaining.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
Nope. No,
Yep. Sam abstained. I'm sorry. I also didn't say. I thought you had raised your hand.
Understandable.
So now we have a really fun thing. We had asked if we could go visit the robotics group next door, but let me go poke my head in to make sure that somebody talked to them about it, because they look awfully relaxed over there.
Well, that's good.
That's
As
great.
they should be.
Yeah, they're happy.
Put your hoods up and stuff.
I hope they're not scared of it.
I hope they got something cool to show.
I talked to our new
It's
person, our new teacher of the world type thing, and she was recommending at the door. She, I know, here you're coming, she said. She knows, but maybe got their stuff.
I recognize a lot of
Everybody looked so relaxed, I wasn't sure if there was. Okay,
good.
all right, we will, thank you. Board members, we are welcome, and we can wander over, I'm sure the public is welcome. We have committee business on the agenda right now, so personnel gets to lead off.
Oh, goodness gracious, it's wonderful. I have a couple of motions to make. We have a couple of hires. So I'll make a motion to approve a contract for Allison Cota, 1.0 full-time equivalency support staff, special ed paraeducator at Clarendon.
I will make that motion.
Okay?
Yes, these are all extras.
Or second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
We're good? Okay? So be it. Second one, I make a motion to offer the girls' varsity basketball position for the fall 2021 season to Jacob Tanner.
So moved.
And I'll second
Sam
that.
seconded that. Did you get that, Ann? Discussion? And just so you know, Kim, Maneri, Tyler, and myself all participated in the interview, so it was good.
Great.
All those in favor? Yay? Opposed? Abstain? Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Lynn. I was returning.
I did that on purpose.
Just to see if I could run back over. Okay. Policy, BJ.
Okay.
Thanks, Lynn.
We had a great meeting. I'm glad we were able to do the reschedule. Talked a lot about F1. There was the discipline policy. We went through and did a lot of wordsmithing.
Yes.
And I think we had one little action step that we asked the administration to come back with us. A little bit better definition of a retention. What is it called? Restore of justice, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then for our next meeting, which is happening, no, we don't have any other action. We don't have any action taken to first readings or anything, but our next policy meeting is going to be next Tuesday, the 9th at 5:30. And we're going to be and there's some policies we need to address because of federal grants. And it looks like the capitalization policy, travel policy, and procurement conflict of interest policy. I haven't really looked at them, I'm just reading the titles.
Okay.
So those will be on the agenda for the next policy meeting next week.
Okay.
If I could just jump in quick, the next personnel meeting will be December 1st. Well, let me backtrack on that because I don't know what's going to happen with the change, so never mind.
Okay. Needing to be TBD.
Yep.
Okay. Finance, Liz?
All right. Good evening, everyone. I have the following pay orders for approval. From the general fund, a pay order in the amount of $96,527.53. Labeled officials, a pay order in the amount of $2,266. From the general fund, a pay order in the amount of $62,883.81. From our after-school lunch program, a pay order in the amount, from our after-school program, I beg your pardon, a pay order in the amount of $515.47. And then from our lunch program, a pay order in the amount of $55,006.30 for a grand total of $217,199.11. For payroll, I have regular payroll dated October 22nd, 2021 in the amount of $576,732.13. And regular payroll dated November 1st in the amount of $6,115.58 for a grand total of $582,847.71. And I move that we accept and approve these pay orders and this payroll as presented.
Did you, I'm sorry, I was writing down something. You went into the student activity account too, right? On the accounts payable?
Nope, I did not, because I didn't scroll down.
Okay.
Thank you, Adrian.
Okay.
All right. So from the following student activity accounts that I overlooked, thank you, Adrian. From Mill River, a pay order in the amount of $1,705.39. And from Wallingford Elementary School, a pay order in the amount of $70 for a grand total of $1,775.39. So, revision, I move that we accept and approve the payroll and the pay orders, including the student activity accounts, as presented.
I'll second it.
Sam seconded. Do you want me to call the question?
Sure.
Okay, I'll call the question of approving these two warrants. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. There's no abstentions or no's. Okay.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I'll add that the Finance Committee has added meetings because it is budget season, and so we will be meeting on the 15th as well as the 22nd this month at 5 p.m.
What was the second date?
November 15th and November 22nd.
22nd?
Yeah, the 22nd is the regularly scheduled meeting. The 15th was added.
Okay, thanks.
Now the ad hoc committees. Len, you at least had a meeting. I don't know
Yes,
if
we did.
Matt did or not, so. You can go first.
You can go first, I
Okay.
believe.
Okay.
We had our first ad hoc committee meeting last night, and it was virtual. We had a lot of community input, and I think the folks came prepared, and we spent, and I'll keep this brief, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what we wanted to accomplish. We were charged sort of originally with trying to find out why students and families had left the district. As we discussed it last night, we felt that it wasn't just that we should be looking at, that we wanted to put in place something that we could do on a yearly basis, perhaps, some sort of survey that would take place from now on, instead of doing nothing for 3 or 4 or 5 years and trying to catch up. So we sort of set those two avenues up. So we'll continue to investigate. Our next steps are to look at the questions that we might want to put on the surveys. Then we'll talk about the process involved, because we didn't really get to that the other night, in terms of who sends them out, who collects them, who tabulates them, all those kinds of things, because we have to look at confidentiality and those kinds of things. Our next meeting is November 10th at 5:30. That will again be virtual. And you should have received an invite.
We did.
Good, okay. And Ann sent out the agenda, I think.
She did.
Already. And I have a question. I don't know, Ann, should I be, because I didn't last night, should I be recording that meeting?
We haven't, I don't think anyone has been recording committee meetings.
Okay. All right.
Minutes, but not recording.
But I
You're
thought of that.
responsible for minutes.
Well,
Yeah, right. No, but I meant, we're,
Yeah.
I mean, as a board, we're
Yes,
responsible for
yeah.
minutes, not you
I just-
specifically.
Well,
I have notes too, if you want them.
okay, so that's good to know. And I will get the minutes out as soon as I can. But it was a good meeting, and I appreciate the folks that were there and the board members that were there. I think it was a good give and take and exchange. And if any committee members want to add to that, they're more than welcome to.
No, it was interesting. And I think it'll be something that'll be helpful ongoing to have,
Yeah.
to have better information
Yep.
and more easily accessible, and on a more regular basis. Matt?
Yep. I am hoping to schedule the first meeting in the next week. I'm waiting to hear back, as Dave had requested that some staff and students may be sitting on this committee. So I'm just waiting for an interested list of who may want to join, and then I'll go ahead and get the first meeting scheduled, so.
Thanks. The next thing that we had on the agenda, I think, sort of can tie into Matt, and that's the statement of inclusion that we've sort of put off with other things coming into our interest, I guess. And I was wondering whether it would be advisable or acceptable that we move the statement of inclusion into that ad hoc committee to be incorporated into whatever they end up designing. What do you think? I mean, I'd be happy to bring, I mean, we have it on the agenda anyway to discuss the statement of inclusion, and we have 10 minutes, or 5 minutes at least, to do that. But I was wondering whether it wouldn't be a duplication of effort.
Fine by me.
Well,
But I mean, I'm just suggesting that, and opening it up for conversation.
Would you say then charging them to come up with the final wordsmithing to bring back for approval as well?
Well, I mean,
give them that as a block, like a stepping stone.
I think to include it, and I don't know who would actually write it. I mean, I think you would obviously have to have board approval for the actual statement. But whether or not it would work to be somehow included in that project.
Sounds like a good first project, especially.
Well, then it would be visible.
Yeah.
You know, which I sort of like
And
a
if
lot.
you're bringing in students and other members.
It might be a wider conversation.
Yeah, the people involved in that might actually be really good.
Is that good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I'd like to speak.
Just a
Oh,
question.
yeah, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I think we also need to look at, in our board goals, there's a whole section on
I mean,
equity
obviously, that's not what we
that we haven't got to yet. And so I think you talk about duplication of effort, we need to make sure that we're not doing that. The other thing, and I think it's on the agenda at some point, BJ, is looking at the equity policy. So those two things, and again, I'm not saying it shouldn't go on whatever Matt's group comes up with, but I think we also need to look at those and make sure that they all mesh. That's all.
Yeah, I agree.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
That one doesn't say this, and that
Absolutely.
doesn't say that, and, because we want to be inclusive, and so we need to make sure that the wording is the same on all of them, that's all.
That, operating from the point of view that policy, that we're looking back to policy for guidance as opposed to making policy match the work of the committee. I just want to make sure that we're
Yeah.
clear on that. That's the sort of line that we're following.
The chain of command.
We're looking at policy for guidance as opposed to thinking about how we're going to change policy again.
Yeah. Well, and I think the board goals, depending on how far we get tonight, that's in there as well. And we have a 3-year equity plan. So all of that wordage, I just want to make sure that we're cognizant, big word, sorry, slipped up, of everything coming together, that's all.
And that district equity policy is on the rotation?
Yeah.
So it's been on the agenda for quite a while, we just haven't, it's been since
Yep.
we have something in front of it. Okay.
All right. All good points, I
Thank you.
think. Thanks. So now we have Transact Other Legal Business, and I figure that's where we will put our meeting time. I had sent out an email to the board after the last meeting, which went really late, and wondered whether we wanted to try starting a 6 o'clock start time. I did have one person who said it wasn't optimum necessarily. But what is everybody else's? I only got a couple responses. I mean, it would put Len's personnel meeting, we'd have to, figure out how to deal with that, whether you do it at 5:30 or what. But if we could start at 6, we would have 3 hours before 9 o'clock and everybody turned into a pumpkin.
For me, it would be no. I want to continue to do the 7. I think one thing that might be a problem is that going back that hour may affect the public more than us as board members. With me, that means I'm home a little early on Wednesdays. I usually do a lot more time frame. I think it should be there. I'm a board member for the last 26 years, and we've never gone to other than a 7 o'clock meeting on anything. The many committees I've been on, the boards I've been on. I would.
We just got off of a 6 o'clock committee meeting.
Committee is one thing. It's not done every time. The board is a different situation. It seems to be there. And it's more for the public than it is for us. It should be that they have the ability to comment that. Someone may not get out. They have to change eating their supper at 5 o'clock instead of 6 to be able to get here or get on the computer.
Go ahead, Asha.
To Doug's point, I think that if we make the change, we might need to look at how we're communicating it, that we may need to communicate, if, you know, as you're saying, the meeting's been at 7 o'clock for 30 or more years, then I think we might need to pursue further avenues rather than just the agenda or just the, you know, our standard method of announcement for that. So we might look at that. I'm comfortable with a 6 o'clock. I wonder if 6:30 might shave things down while still accommodating more people. But Doug, I appreciate your concern. I agree. I wouldn't want this to affect the community. I'm okay with keeping a 7 p.m. start time, if that is best serves the community when there are folks who are finishing up work at 5, may need to coordinate things with kids and dinner and things like that.
I'm gonna jump here. I'm gonna vote to keep it at this time because I like that hour beforehand for personnel, for professional development. I think we've used that hour beforehand, that 6 o'clock hour, for other things, and I like the idea of keeping it open and available. If we start moving the actual meeting to 6 o'clock and then starting those extra things at 5 o'clock, that really cuts into like dinner time and trying to get, you know, I'm running full on trying to get to anything at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So that would be my reasoning for staying at 7.
Okay. If there's no interest, it's fine. I just remember, I mean, the last meeting, everybody sort of stopped being, there was very little commentary after about 8:45, 8:30.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, no, but I mean, but there's a lot of stuff that we're working on.
No,
and, you know, a 2-hour window is pretty short. And I think if we're not going to commit to staying till 10 on some nights, which is really hard for people, then we have to start earlier.
No.
But if that's not, you know, if that doesn't work, it doesn't work.
What about our Saturday meetings? We're going to talk about goals on Saturday?
We have a Saturday meeting scheduled, yes.
How many of those do you think it's going to take? I've never done goals, so I don't know.
No, I wasn't just talking about our goals work, but it seems like our meetings are going 2 to 3 hours on a regular basis. We have more public comment, we have more conversation back and forth. The meetings have gone longer. I'm perfectly willing to stay at 7 o'clock, but we have to get stuff done. So if we don't get it done by 9 o'clock, we have to stay.
So my suggestion is, with other meetings I've been at school and other places, that if we say we're going to go till 10, we stop at 10. Like we do our committees. Some of you get a warning, you got 10 minutes to go. Because last time, we stayed once till almost 10:30, once till 10:15, 10:20, and people get dead. People who've worked all day long are just dragging at that point. So we need to have a firm cutoff. That's just my...
I agree, except some of the things are, and I don't quite know how to structure that. I can keep the meetings moving faster, but people may feel rushed, they may feel cut off, but if that's okay, that's fine with me, and I can try and keep things moving faster. I think most people are comfortable with a 9 o'clock, 9:30 cutoff at the very latest, you know, if they have to be up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning.
5.
Yeah. Okay, 5 o'clock.
4:30, 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an issue for some people. We will write the agendas for ending at 9 o'clock, but, you know, we're just going to have to suck it up if we don't end because of whatever conversation happens. Okay?
I agree.
Yeah,
All right.
it's worth trying first.
We will try. But don't get mad at me if I say, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. Okay. Does anybody else have any other legal business? All right. Agenda building for next meeting? Before we... Actually, you know, we're sort of stepping... I've put aside board goals work to try and get done. So we're going to set aside agenda building. It is 8 o'clock, so we will move to goals.
All right.
And discuss agenda building after.
Oh, I got
what?
I got one thing, I'm daydreaming.
Yep, that's okay.
About 2 meetings ago, 4 weeks ago, we noted that the flag out here was tattering, and it hasn't been replaced yet, so I just wondered if anybody knows the status of that.
I don't, and Gary's not here. Can you hold that thought until next meeting?
I'll try.
Okay.
Or email Gary.
Yeah.
Email.
Yeah, get hold of Gary.
Give us the update.
He'll let you know.
Yeah.
Done.
Just by writing it down.
That's Gary.
Well, he's good.
Show me that technology.
Response.
I mean, it may be that he's ordered it, or he did, yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I just don't have the answer.
Could be, what is it, a supply chain issue?
Yep, they're fixing it in the robotics
Yep.
room. They're getting it delivered.
That's right.
Could be on a canister.
Yeah.
American flag in China. God, that's...
So Liz.
Yes.
You are our happy record keeper.
Yes.
So I'm going to let you tell us where we stopped.
Okay, great. And does anybody need this presentation reshared?
I would appreciate it.
Yeah, why don't you just
That would
send it
be-
out to everybody?
Okay,
Thank you,
so,
Liz.
Oh, wait, please notes.
yeah, I'll just
Yes.
re-share it with the board. Okay, so you should have it now. I have us as having left off on slide 5, which is complete, and that is 2E. And I would like to draw everyone's attention to the fact that under goal 2, we have A, B, C, D, E. We already have 5 bullets, and there's a 6th one on the next slide. So I just want to call people's attention to that. So we are ready to pick up, I believe, on slide 6.
Is that the one that says graduation rates at the top? Next one?
2D.
Okay, I'm sorry.
2D, and I'd be happy to read that.
So it's 2E though, right?
I beg your pardon.
Right, sorry.
Well,
But I mean, we have to
It has 2D.
yeah.
okay, it's the second 2D. It's slide 6.
Out of school
It
suspension
says,
data.
it's out of
Okay.
school, thank you.
Yep.
Some sort of,
Yeah, very unique. for
yeah, qualifying. So social emotion, this is a social emotional goal as measured from 2018 to 2019, so obviously that's out of date. Out of school suspensions, total number of suspensions in terms of days issued and number of individuals will be primarily limited to circumstances affecting student and school safety and will reduce on an annual basis. Students from protected classes or students designated as receiving free and reduced lunch will not be disproportionately represented in that data. And then there's some old data here. And I would be interested if I can put Brian on the spot. Hi, Brian.
Everyone leave? Everyone left.
My recollection, and folks, you know, help refresh my memory here. My recollection was that, well, again, I mean, this is old stuff, right? So, were we moving away from out-of-school suspension entirely, and was that the plan, and have we done that? That was my understanding.
So the goal is to shift to more restorative practices so that we can avoid suspensions.
Yep.
I don't know that we've necessarily said suspensions are totally off the books, because I'm sure there are certain things that...
Safety suspension.
Yeah. I mean, if you bring a firearm to school, we don't talk about it. We have to do something about it.
Gotcha,
So,
okay.
yeah.
And if I might, I'm sorry.
Please.
DJ, didn't we talk about that? Weren't we talking about restorative justice in that discipline policy that we were looking at?
Yes.
Yeah.
We definitely did.
What I'm thinking with this one is I would like to eliminate this one and add a restorative justice. But I just don't know how to quantify it.
I think suspensions was the good way to actually see if that's working or not, because if your suspensions are going down, you must be addressing those behaviors some other more productive way. So yeah, I don't know how you'd measure positive outcomes with restorative justice. I'm sure we could come up with something, but that might take a little while to figure out.
I do like that approach.
I'm a positive person, so I don't like I really don't like focusing on suspensions as a goal at all.
You could report something like number of incidents that were resolved without disciplinary action, something like that. Then you know how many infractions there are, and you know how they're being resolved.
So I would agree if the suspensions go down, that's great.
Yep.
As long as the disruptions don't go up.
Correct. Which is what I think
Yeah.
his point is,
Yep,
right?
yep,
If you
yep.
look at them all and see how they.
Right.
But I like BJ's proposal to put at the forefront a positive, label of restorative practices.
I want to write down what he wrote, and I just don't remember what it was.
Okay.
Well, roll the tape back, Will.
But I think Bruce has a good point, too. If you have 100 infractions and 10 suspensions, well, that's different than 11 infractions and 10 suspensions. So I wonder if you get a bigger picture, if you say, this is the total number of infractions, and then you talk about which ones were resolved without disciplinary action. I think you get a bigger, fuller picture of what's actually being sent out of the classroom to the office, and then how it's being resolved. Len?
Just a question, and I don't know if this is still happening. As an assistant principal, I used to have to send to the state at the end of the school year. Listing all of the infractions that occurred during the year.
SIRS, Combined Incident Reporting
There you go.
something, yeah.
See, it didn't take me very long to forget.
Yeah, oh yeah. We absolutely still do that. That's still a state requirement. The types of things that rise to the level of being state reportable are we've got a good list of things that we do report and things we don't, but yeah, we do still do that.
I mean, that would be something
That we could refer to?
that might be helpful.
What is that called?
SIRS,
Critical
CIRS.
Incident Reporting, CIRS or something.
I'm
It goes to the
confident,
state. The state sends you a disc to put it on, and then you...
They probably don't do that anymore.
You'll be pleased to know that that's an old system they have put to rest. We do that a little different way. But it wasn't too many years.
It's still a pain in the neck.
Wasn't too many years ago that we needed a Windows 98 computer to do it. This is like 4 or 5 years ago. Now it's pretty updated.
But I mean, it's a lot of time is spent compiling that data, and that might be helpful. How we would include that in here, I don't know, but...
Is that where these numbers would have come from, essentially, in that collection?
We actually have a far more streamlined way of doing that. So we use PowerSchool for our grading system. We also input a lot of other information in there, like incidents.
Yep.
And we have to, the level of infraction, all the state reporting information's in there. So Len, if you had to code things certain ways to report it to the state, when you put the incident in, you code it in the system. So I'm actually the one that does all that reporting. I
like that list.
I run one report out of PowerSchool, send it to the state, it's done. So that stuff's actually not terrible if you wanted to see something like that. It wouldn't be a ton of extra man hours or, sorry, I shouldn't say man hours, that might sound.
Well, that's one of the things that always frustrated me, is because I had all the information, because we would input all the infractions.
Yep.
And so what I would like to have done is click one button and send them all the stuff.
Yep.
They could deal with it, but we couldn't do that.
Welcome to the future.
Yep.
So,
Brian, are you able to get disciplinary actions categorized?
Yep.
So I don't know.
Yeah, we can.
I'll let somebody else wordsmith it, but I really like setting a goal based on the ratio to infractions to
suspension.
Disciplinary action.
Yeah.
Non-disciplinary action.
This is what I wrote. Please tell me if I captured it. Infractions will increasingly be redressed, I don't know if that's the right word, through restorative practices, which will limit out-of-school suspensions.
Is it redressed or addressed?
I put redressed.
I know. I'm not
You
sure.
put addressed. Okay. I'm sorry, I am slowing down very quickly.
It's only
Yeah.
8 o'clock, so you've got to come.
Well, I've
Gotta
been up
buck
since
up.
5, so.
I know. I've been up since 5:30, so
I'm
I haven't
sorry,
had
could
another
you
half
read
hour.
that one more
I
time?
put infractions will increasingly be addressed through restorative practices, which will limit out-of-school suspensions. And then I added the students from protected classes or students designated as receiving free and reduced lunch will not be disproportionately represented in that data.
We change suspension to disciplinary action?
Sure.
Or is there any difference?
Is
disciplinary...
That is discipline action, isn't it? Restorative justice there is discipline there.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So we're not eliminating disciplinary action.
Okay, well.
Is disciplinary action quantified, Brian, in a similar way to suspensions, or is that harder to quantify?
Yeah, that is a phrase that I threw out, and in my mind, and I'm not saying this is for anybody else at school that you'd ask, in my mind, that means something like a suspension, an expulsion, a lunch detention.
Could be almost anything.
Yeah, but for me, that's a phrase that covers a lot of punitive things. So maybe that's a better word to think about, punitive action versus restorative action. I don't know if that makes more sense to more people, if that puts more people on the same page using that language.
Which
I
will
don't know.
limit punitive action?
I think limited punitive actions, including out-of-school suspension.
Okay.
I also assume that I'm just thinking about this chart. So let's say that instead of number of days applied, instead of this being a chart about suspensions with number of days applied and number of students involved, I would propose that we make it a chart about, about infraction outcomes, and we have number of infractions, and then we have number of punitive actions. Now, if we are tracking punitive actions instead of suspensions, I assume that the numbers here are going to go up significantly because now we're tracking things like lunch detentions.
Yep.
Are we okay with that as it pertains to this goal?
Your baseline changes because you've changed your measure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Brian, though, is this something that we are supposed to be dealing with sort of as a directive from the state to be looking at out-of-school suspensions? Is that a particular punishment that, I know it's on the news. There's, the different groups of people that are affected by these things, by out-of-school suspensions more commonly than other groups, and I'm not sure if that's not what we're supposed to be tracking specifically, as opposed to lunch detentions.
Out of my realm of expertise, I am not aware of a mandate from the state that tells us that we need to be reducing those numbers.
No, but in terms of maybe not from the state, but in terms of federal law, discrimination laws, whether or not those are, maybe we have to make sure that we address this.
I think it's a good thing to do. I don't know that we have a mandate to do it anywhere. I don't know if even looking at discrimination, again, I'm not going to be the expert person in the district to ask.
No,
but I don't think we have, I think moving towards restorative justice is the right thing to do for a lot of reasons, I think. I don't think we have to do it because of any federal discrimination laws.
I always thought it was one of the markers of whether or not we're doing things properly.
I think
that's how many kids we have in out-of-school suspensions, and whether or not they belong in any protected class, or whether they're IEP students or whether
I think you're absolutely correct. It's a great way to measure progress there. I don't think that anybody's asking us for that data to make sure that we're making that progress. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
To that point, I know that we have 11 days applied for 2021. We have 11 days applied and 6 students involved. That number isn't 0. Maybe it'll never be 0. But what I'm curious about is, are folks comfortable with stopping our goal tracking of suspensions at this time and saying, hey, these numbers are encouraging enough. I know there's a great trend downward here. These numbers are encouraging enough that we are going to shift from that suspension metric to the punitive action metric? Or do we feel that we have further that we can, hold accountable this goal on suspensions, try to reduce that, and then, you know, once that hits a lower bar, then we get down to the punitive stuff. I mean, I'm back and forth on whether I think
the
punitive
out-of-school
or
suspensions are so important, though. I mean, they
Yeah,
really
well,
are
and that's-
interrupting kids' education entirely.
Exactly. I don't know. I think I'm leaning on the side of continuing to track the suspensions, but maybe we still can build into our phrasing something about punitive actions, but make suspensions the thing we're tracking.
In terms of some background, I know, I mean, I have mentioned every year at budget time, do we have a person yet so that we could, instead of having out-of-school suspensions ever, I mean, maybe not for kids that bring guns to school, you know, whatever. I mean, not that that happens on any kind of regularity, please. But, you know, for things where there isn't really a whole lot of options and we don't have somebody in the building to be able to sit with kids all day long that would otherwise be an out-of-school suspension, but to keep them in school, at least in the building, and working on their schoolwork, as opposed to being home and playing God knows what video game. I mean, it's just, it's such an entirely unhelpful thing for almost every kid. I mean, unless there's a danger component, you know, for whatever reason. I mean, other than that, I personally don't want to see any out-of-school suspensions unless it's a real safety issue. And until we actually see zero, I want to track them, because I keep hoping we can build that personnel into the budget, and every year it gets taken out. Because something else is, you know, more important.
It's tremendously valuable. I mean, having sort of started it here, but really implemented it when I went to Fairhaven, it has so many different uses, not even punitive in some instances. It's a great opportunity to take a student out of the drama.
We're talking restorative practice.
That occurs, and put them in this room and let them chill, get their schoolwork done, not texting on their phone, I mean, all of that kind of stuff. And it works tremendously. I loved it. You have to have the right person. That's important. But I do think we need to keep track of the out-of-school suspension. I mean, include the punitive, or restorative justice, punitive, all of those, but also I think you need to keep track of, as long as we don't have an in-school suspension person, then you need to keep track of out-of-school, and maybe that's what you use to convince people that you need to put an in-school suspension person in the budget.
It's a support person.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a support.
Yeah, it's tremendous.
But it has to be somebody who can really work with kids.
Yes.
We've had that, I'm going back a lot of years, like my kids have been out of there for a while, but we had one of the persons who would sit in their office they were on, he'd be working on certain things. It was a guy from Wallingford, I can't remember his last name, but he...
Brian Farnham do that for a while?
Yeah.
Anyway, they would bring the kids in every other day, so you go one day on, one day at home, if it was like a 5-day expulsion, you know, on it, and they would sit in a room probably like this table here with a couple chairs, and they'd go out for lunch, they'd go out for a bathroom break, whatever it was. But it was going over the homework and stuff. They would go in and help out a little bit, get started up, and just keep track of it.
Yeah.
That was, I bet you that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, well.
We've got...
2000, when I was
One thing we've got to do, too, is we got to, well, this is a different time. I mean,
but it worked.
I'll talk about it later, what I got in mind.
It works to help to keep the kids attached to the school.
Yep.
It becomes too easy, and they won't do the work. I don't care if you send them home with a bunch of stuff. They're not going to do the work when they go home. It's not going to come back with them when they come back. So
no, because there's already issues going on.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
So, sorry, go ahead. And if we wanted to look at the trend, if we were to add these other lines of like punitives, because it's in your system and reportable, we could look back and watch the curve of that as well?
Yeah, we can add information, and I think keeping your metric the same while you add things, I think kind of gets you the best of both worlds. You can still be seeing progress, you don't have to start over, but then you can get the wider picture. Yes, we could make that work.
Did we ever figure out what that form was, or that report was called? It was CR something?
The incident reporting part I'm confident about. I think it's combined. That could be wrong. I don't know what the S is. Yeah, but it's CIRS. Yeah.
Could we refer to getting a synopsis of that report every year as part of the metrics for this goal?
I wouldn't even do that, because I think we might be able to give you more than what the state requires, actually. Because we have more, we file more things than the state asks for.
No, but in terms of what the board wants to look at as part of the goals.
Could you repeat the name of that report?
CIRS. That report's no longer.
It's been wrapped into another one, yeah.
Doesn't even matter.
Okay.
Combined incident reporting.
And it's less than what they also collect, so.
Yeah, so I think like detention, if a kid gets a detention, we don't report that to the state.
Right.
But we record that. We do record
I'm not sure
those.
if we want to see that either.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things I would like to see is a listing of what punitive responses would be that you can pull out.
Yep.
Just the list. And
that's in there.
I think one of those items will be out-of-school suspensions, but I think data for us for this goal, since I think the goal needs to be around restorative practices, I think we're going to see the metric not only out-of-school suspensions, but detentions, these things, in a breakdown. But I think our goal should be the punitive responses versus infractions, but a report that you can give us is the breakdowns of those. Does that make sense? So we can see the data, and we can get an update of the data, and that's what we're requesting, but our goal is really about those infractions and restorative practices.
So I'm not capturing that in here because I feel like that's kind of minutia.
I think you are.
Oh, you think I got it? Okay.
I think you, I take your word, I think you have it.
Yeah, okay.
I just think what we put in the graph.
Yep. Right,
You know,
okay.
I think the goals are punitive responses, but something that we'll expect in the report that you give us at the end of the year, the presentation, will be the actual breakdown.
So how do we change the out-of-school suspension data little blurb in this goal isn't complete enough for what we're going to be asking for.
Yeah, I think.
So what evidence are we going to be asking for this goal?
And that's what I was like,
Yeah,
I think I need to see a listing of what.
I know, but in goal language.
So it's a 4-line chart then with infractions?
It would be a ratio. We're trying to get to a, for every, if there are 100 infractions and there are 10 punitive responses, like a 1 to 10 ratio, we'd probably want like a 1 to, who's the math teacher here?
Well, since we don't know what it is, we don't want to set the number now.
Yeah, but I was thinking, our goal would be a ratio. We want to get to this ratio of infractions to this.
I liked the language actually in the original line that says will reduce on an annual basis. I also liked the part about being limited to circumstances affecting student and school safety. I wonder if we can wrap that back in after the part about.
I got the on an annual basis. What was the other one?
Oh, so actually this line affecting student and school safety. Okay. Yeah, on an annual basis, I think that's great. And then at the end of the sentence where it says including out-of-school suspensions, I wonder if we could say including out-of-school suspensions, which will be primarily limited to circumstances affecting student and school safety, just pulling that line from the first.
I like that.
Section. I think it's important that we keep that part in there because it gives the benchmark for why suspensions may continue to exist in those circumstances. With that understanding that they will be used in those circumstances, but otherwise
we expect things to be dealt with through restorative practice.
Exactly.
And so if we add the two reporting lines of total infractions and punitive measures taken towards those infractions, we should be able to watch those go
Yeah, I
towards
think
the
if we
ratio
had-
we'd
if
like.
I'm looking at this one, we'd actually have three goals. We'd probably have total, we'd have punitive, and then we'd have a subgroup of the punitive that is specifically suspensions.
Yep.
Because we feel it is a safety issue, which I agree with that one. I mean, I think those three would be, we do need to define what are the punitive responses, though. So that's the only thing I think we need to understand before we make a actual.
Would that be in the matrix kind of piece? Wouldn't that?
That would be in an export out of Power School.
I mean, I think there's still some value in having a goal of, no, never mind, it didn't come together.
I think we gotta chew on that a little more.
Yeah, can we move on maybe to the next one?
Yeah,
And-
I'm gonna put.
And
to
revisit
be
this one?
continued.
Can we eliminate, or that sentence that stands alone, a path to accomplishing this goal will be developed across a 5-year span? That, to me, makes no sense whatsoever.
I don't have that.
Where are you?
Oh.
Where are you?
Right here. It's not there?
I may, no.
Okay.
Isn't
Then
that strange?
Evidently, it's been eliminated.
Yeah.
Right below that.
It was a good idea.
I'll agree so much.
I know, yeah, I see it. That's so funny. Okay.
The next
That is
slide.
weird.
Next one,
Yeah, so the next slide is actually
Sorry.
student attendance. Did we address that elsewhere?
I don't think so.
Should we, okay, move that to under the minimizing dropout?
Student attendance is different, though.
My concern is that we have a laundry list under the second goal. And I was kind of trained that you have a maximum number of bullets under any one header, and we've surpassed that.
I think sometimes you have to, though.
Okay.
If you have, I mean, what would we get rid of?
I mean, I
guess?
don't disagree. I want to kind of read ahead almost to see, where we can condense stuff. Yeah, I haven't done that in a long time, so. But yeah, we can also do that after the fact. So, A, B, C, D, E, F, this is now G.
Okay.
So, this is slide 7. Social emotional goal 2G. District student daily attendance rates will be at or above 95%.
During a pandemic.
That's so, in my head, I'm thinking about my own attendance.
Do we really want to make sure everybody's
Which
here?
is, yeah. I almost feel like this is a non-pandemic goal. It's a good one. I mean, students have to be here to be successful, which is why we want to retain students and,
Well, for right now, it's kind of sort of irrelevant right now, I feel like.
because of the pandemic.
Yeah, because of the
Yeah.
pandemic. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
I
wonder if I can put
Change the attendance to unexcused.
Okay.
that would work, yeah.
Yeah,
would-
that
would
makes
cover
sense.
it, 'cause-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Glad you're
Okay.
thinking.
Yeah.
He can still cope at 8:30. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
This is my life. And Liz, I'm thinking about all the bullets.
Yep.
I'm looking through all of these. All of these are already something that has to be addressed and improved upon on a regular basis under this for student growth. So I think what we're doing, rather than limiting the goals, I think we're just really checking off things that we know are already kind of being addressed, and we're just setting a goal for that addressment.
Okay. It does. I just, again, for me, it's more of like an organizational structural thing. I'm not necessarily thinking about content right now. I'm thinking about organization and structure. Yeah. the list is getting lengthy.
It's inspired to break it up into two sections and say something.
Okay, and, right, thank you. All right, so district daily attendance rates will be at or above 95%. I don't know how to incorporate.
Unexcused or
Yeah.
excused absences.
Well, it goes the opposite way. Unexcused absences will be less than 15%.
There you go, 5, right.
Ryan, you're thinking.
Always.
You just see.
I'm just gonna add limiting district.
You could, yes.
I'll talk about attendance if you want me to talk about attendance. I guess my biggest question is, why does attendance matter? Before you decide what you're going to measure, why does attendance matter?
I guess the mantra I have always heard is you are not taking part in the class and you are not availing yourself of your education if you're not here.
And that matters why?
And given proficiencies,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that holds anymore, but.
That's a valid point.
True.
I
So-
would ask, is there a correlation? I'm making an assumption that there is, or perhaps I've read that somewhere at some time,
I
but
think-
I'm making a correlation that there's a positive correlation between
I mean,
attendance and
it is, it is difficult for
Typically-
kids not, if they're not in school on a regular basis, to take part in the classroom processes.
The
You know, I mean-
the research I've seen on fairly large scales, what they'll say is something like 50%. So if you are chronically absent, you have a 50% chance of later in your academic career falling behind, struggling. Not just kind of struggling, but really having a rough time. So a 50% chance.
Pretty big.
Yeah. Chronic absence is 1 day every 2 weeks, if that's how it's defined in those research studies. And they're not talking excused, unexcused. They're talking about if you miss school,
Not being there.
you have a high likelihood of falling behind. Not the best indicator of whether you're going to struggle, but it is a strong indicator of whether you're going to struggle. Guess what other good indicators are? Well, if you're failing one class, that's likelihood, that's an indicator you're going to struggle too. Little stronger, but attendance is actually fairly strong compared to failing a class. So the argument would be that attendance is more of a predictor maybe than failing a class. If you wait till a class failure, you might be a little too late. Attendance you can maybe catch a little earlier. So why would we measure attendance and look at it as a goal? Because it correlates to a 50% shot of that student
success.
falling behind. Yeah.
You could just say
Yeah.
it correlates to student success.
Yeah.
I mean, I know when I work, as I volunteer as a guardian at Lightham, and one of the things that is constant, there are a lot of kids come into the family court situation through truancy actions.
Yeah.
And you're right, I think it is a predictor. The kids, it's sort of like when it's younger kids, either there's upset in the household so that kids aren't in school. It's not, their fault, but they aren't brought to school. School isn't the prime importance of what's going on in their household. So you're right. But I then struggle to say, are we tying something that, and we're not really labeling what we want to have happen. We're just looking at the symptom of something that is happening.
Should attendance be should attendance be a goal, or should attendance be something we're using to find at-risk students and support them? I don't know.
Do you actually get attendance? At one point at Mill River, maybe it's still this way, attendance mattered for A block. If you're here A block, you're here. But then you could cut B block, you could cut C block, you could hang out in the bathroom, but you're still here. So you're really not attending, you're still not attending the classes.
So for an individual teacher, would you not be, during all that same time, would you not be saying, hey, this kid has missed half of my classes, she is not going to pass because they haven't been here enough?
So we've had a teacher, and there was a big brouhaha 4, 5, 6 years ago, because this teacher was never getting certain students to his class. They were in school, and there was no ramifications for it. Well, they're here, so they're present, but they're not in my class.
So in other words, our daily attendance system doesn't give us the information that we need.
Right.
Okay.
Is there still an attendance policy? There used to be a policy that if you missed 20 days, 10 days in a semester class, 20 days in a full year class, that you would lose credit.
Unless you went to the board and asked for some, you could ask to go to the board.
I do not believe we can do that anymore, and that's that proficiency question, that you cannot fail a course, fail.
You're proficient.
Yeah.
Actually, so that
You
means they
can't be not given credit.
Right.
If you show up and you perform really poorly because you missed a lot of the class, probably, it's
I'm
probably
just wondering if that
correlated.
policy is still in place.
I think that's a state piece where if you perform, you do the work, doesn't matter how many days you've missed, you did the work, you get the credit.
Right.
Yeah.
And that makes perfect
But it's real hard to do the work.
Yeah.
We do have a student attendance policy.
Does it talk about?
And it's going to go on BJ's list to be addressed.
Yeah, it
because
hasn't
we're
been
not-
updated since 2016. Yeah,
Does it list specific numbers of days?
no. It says.
But a lot of schools do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Brian made a really interesting point. Like, do we want to set it as a goal, or do we want to use attendance as a goal or attendance as an indicator of success? And given the proficiency model, because
I think
it's
we get
true,
rid of
what
it.
if a kid is
I
out
agree.
once
Yep.
every 2 weeks because they have some sort of medical condition, right?
And what if they're doing great?
Right,
Yeah.
and they're doing
Sure.
beautifully.
Well, and-
Doesn't matter.
I agree.
Right.
I was going to say something along the same line as, even before we brought up policies, is that this almost seems like we should address it with policy and how the administrators are supposed to handle
Yeah.
attendance, 5 days, 10 days, the letter, dealing with it that way. Because I don't think there's really an outcome. I'm thinking attendance is all more affected by the parents. I mean, there's not.
Well, as kids get older, that's not necessarily the case.
Well, I only got a freshman, so.
Yeah.
I don't know yet.
Trust me, as they get older, you have less and less influence. Right,
I
Doug?
like the idea of removing it
Yeah.
and hopefully readdressing it with the policy a little bit clearer.
I mean,
I agree.
I was always amazed that a kid could miss 30 days of a class and still pass.
Well, but if they're doing the work, I mean.
Well, assume, I don't know.
50%.
It is unlikely that they have done the work if they've
Well,
missed 30 days.
One might
but-
say it's
Watermark
unlikely
across
that
this
they've
one.
had any work to do.
Well, there's that.
I had one student in college when I was teaching adjunct who literally read my entire syllabus because I had posted all the assignments, did all the assignments, and never saw him in class.
Yeah.
Got an A.
No. See,
He did everything I asked, and
not my class.
Harder to do in kindergarten. But I think developmentally,
That's the thing about proficiency-based learning.
yeah.
You're supposed to say, this is what you need to know to get out of this class.
yep.
And if I can know that in 3 weeks,
You're done.
then
Great.
why do I even have to come to school?
No, that's true.
I mean, that's why teachers don't particularly care for proficiency-based learning.
Well, but in frankly, so I like proficiency-based grading in it's supposed to be that then you enrich the curriculum for that student. That's what's supposed to happen.
Well, but once you get that baseline, you don't have to go for the enrichment.
Right, but, I mean, if you have contact time with a student
Right.
during the school day, that's,
Can we eliminate that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I struck the whole slide.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
See,
I mean,
now
I do
you
think,
eliminated the letter.
I eliminated the letter. Thank you.
I mean, there is, I think that
We're still on
this
two.
conversation, though, should maybe be in a different place.
Yes.
Because I think
Agree.
I mean, there is something to be part of the class, taking, and being part of the group that is something that public school is supposed to sort of do for
And we do,
kids.
what's that called?
It's part of the
When
social,
you're not on time or
emotional.
when you're not, it's not a proficiency.
Habit of work or a transfer.
Work habits.
Right,
So you could do badly on that,
Yes.
but you still get a good grade on your,
right. you still pass the proficiencies.
Well, and you can't collaborate with your peers if you're never in class, and that's another transferable skill. You know, things, we have to be able to work together.
The way I talk about it with students is if this were a job and you were not showing up, you would not be held in this job. You would lose this job.
Right.
So.
And they said so.
Well, but that might be, well, they're
going to say so in a lot of things.
I have so many leave days I can take.
Right,
I take them as appropriate, and I make up what I have to make up, you know, as
You're doing
part of
your
being
job.
an adult. So
Yeah.
treating it the same way with students.
Right.
And sometimes you're sick.
Right, you might legally be allowed to
Right.
take 15 days,
Yeah.
but if you have become absent and nobody even knows you work here anymore, that is a problem.
Work from home now.
That's
right,
true.
is that- but right, are you doing the work? That's the point.
Okay.
You know.
All right. We've gotten, I mean, I think
Okay.
for many reasons, this doesn't work anymore.
So now
And
we're
this-
on slide 8, which is this is the new G.
Which was the old F.
The new G, the old F.
Okay.
Social emotional goal, as measured by the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, results will improve annually in the following response areas. And the most recent data available is the 2019 data, which is included here. So students agree that in their community, they feel like they matter to people, that students report that there is at least one teacher or other adult in their school that they can talk to if they have a problem, that students are coming to school because they feel safe, that
Yeah, they did not go to school because
I know, but
okay.
I put a positive spin on it for my friend
Yeah,
PJ
well,
over there.
I think unfortunately.
Because I agree. We should be putting positive spins on this. Anyway, that we are addressing use of electronic vaping products. And I would like to ask Brian again, do you know why these 4 bullets were chosen? Are these the strongest indicators of success, or student retention, or student well-being?
Not necessarily. I think the first 2 are pretty important, pretty strong, and ones that we've talked about in district, I think, for a long time.
Yeah.
Those have come up a lot. The vaping one, I think, was more of a sign of the times, put it that way.
Okay.
And that's sort of ebbed a little bit. I'll throw something out while I'm standing here talking. The whole 2-year cycle of YRBS can be challenging to do much with. We have a great student group, the Interact Club, that engages with that work and has done some. Deborah Gardner-Bosch has shared some of that with the board before. We are working internally to use some of those same questions quarterly.
Great.
So every year. So if the board was interested in keeping a goal that was very similar to this, I even think the first 2 questions are ones that we've taken and want to use. And we're planning on using something developmentally appropriate in lower elementary grades that line up with these questions. So you'd get more of a picture of how this is going, and you'd get that data more frequently than waiting 2 years to see and only knowing 7/12, if that makes sense. So I'll just throw that out there, that's something that's going to be available if you want to do something similar, but maybe a little more actionable.
Does it have a title?
Does it have a title?
Replace youth risk behavior survey with?
You could call it our district social emotional survey.
Local.
Yeah, I don't think we have there's no name for it right now.
I just wanted to.
7 questions, I think, is what it is. So something easy to give 4 times a year and have information on.
Yeah, survey, okay.
Okay, so I'm basically, I just added in as measured by the, in parentheses, local social emotional learning survey with a question mark. And I kept everything.
So I think we can strike the vaping. Does that feel?
You said there were 7 questions? So why don't we get rid of these and put in the 7 questions? And before these completely disappear, I think we need to talk about them with, at some other meeting.
So should we
It
come
doesn't
back
look
to this
good.
slide?
Well, when we have the rest, but can you put a note to include the 7 questions that are
Yeah,
in
so I'm
that
gonna
survey.
insert an
Administered
actual
Yeah.
comment. I don't see a note. So what am I doing?
Just stick it underneath the little
Include-
box.
7
Yeah.
local,
Yeah, rewrite with the 7 local survey questions.
okay.
Brian, would it be safe to call them social emotional? Do we, I mean, can we call it a local social emotional survey?
Does somebody want me to send those questions so that you have them the next time you look at this?
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, send it to all of you?
Actually, is it on Google?
Yep.
Great, yeah, I'll link it in here.
Okay.
Thanks.
And eliminate those 4 that are there.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna do that just yet. I'm gonna put in
Okay.
kind of like notes that we come back to this thing.
That
Yeah.
feels like the direction.
Yep.
yeah. And I mean, results will improve only in the following response areas, and we'll just have 7 response areas as opposed to
Okay.
the 4 that are here.
All right, so slide 9 is data from Interact Club.
And I'm not sure.
I can just, I've been striking,
Yeah.
like, I don't want to say erroneous, but stuff we don't need for our work. Can I strike this slide?
That was
This
part
is-
of the presentation that was.
Right, exactly, so I'm gonna strike it unless anybody has an objection. No? Okay.
Cute
All
pictures.
right, so
if
now
it's
we're
got
on to
it.
goal 3. Whoa.
Well, that is good.
Okay, so new set of letters. All right, goal 3 is equity. Develop and adopt a district educational equity policy. 3A, the board will review existing Mill River Union Unified School District policies as they pertain to educational equity.
So this is a little bit out of date.
Yeah. 3B, the board will solicit input and guidance from the VSBA, model policies, and from community stakeholders to develop an educational equity policy, which is completed, and there's a note to remove. And then 3C, an educational equity policy will be adopted by June, which is also completed. Consider removing. So as far as goal 3, have we kind of already done that?
I don't think any of these apply anymore. I don't want to get rid of a goal, equity goal.
Well,
I just don't know what the bullet.
Well, 3A is still there. We'll review existing policies as they pertain to educational equity.
Yeah.
We're still doing that.
You know what I'm thinking is
So-
when we go back and kind of analyze all of the bullets under goal 2, maybe some of them are equity related. And we
I was
can,
going to say that looking at restorative justice practices and reducing out-of-school suspensions feels like we could put it
into equity.
to an equity
Ooh, I
lens.
like that.
that just gives us a little balance. Good call.
Okay. I like that.
I'm gonna throw something out there.
Yeah,
A 3B,
yeah.
a report to the board and made available to the public once a year regarding accomplishment of the goals listed in the district equity policy. I think, I don't think we
I like that.
get
part of
enough
our equity?
information.
Is that part of our equity plan? I mean, I'd have to look at the plan right now. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but, I mean, we should look at what the plan holds us to, because that's much more specific about who needs
Well, perhaps
review and.
that should be the goal. Or part of the goal, to
Follow the plan.
To annually review the plan and make sure that we're
And see how we're
following it.
doing.
And assess whether or not it's being implemented. But how do we put that in goal language?
I don't know how well I captured this, but I put the board will review and report to the community once a year on the district equity
Goals?
goal. That's,
As outlined in the district equity
Policy.
plan?
Okay.
Plan. I think it's a plan.
I think we need,
The district, we need to hear from the district on how they're doing with the plan.
Right.
The policy exists, and that's where the plan, that's the basis for the plan.
Yep.
I mean, I was definitely someone who pushed for, we need to keep reviewing that policy. We need, as we learn more, because this is a, like, ever-evolving field and ever-evolving, like, we keep learning how to do it better and how to treat people better. So that's why we need to keep reviewing it, but it also is important to keep in mind, kind of like what I said before back during the meeting, is where the direction comes from. So we're not reviewing the policy every year in terms of like, are we gonna like,
But we're reviewing the plan.
but we're
every year.
definitely reviewing the plan, and if stuff points us back to it, but it's more we trust in the policy that we created.
No, and
Late for me too.
that's why I suggested that we get some sort of report that would come from, not from the board,
No.
but from the leadership team, that we also make available to the public, because I think that's another piece. Once a year, regarding whether we accomplish, what goals were accomplished. Or
Yeah.
however you want to phrase it, I
Yeah.
don't know. In the district equity.
Can we, on Saturday perhaps, look at the plan and figure out
Yeah.
what, like, what we think are even quantifiable
Yeah.
or qualitative goals? we
Yeah,
can set?
maybe put a note on that.
So where is the plan? Or is it a policy?
Well, there's a plan.
Okay.
To enact the policy.
They're both located on the district website.
Can you
The
either
equity
shoot
statement and
me
equity plan.
the document so I have the URLs? I'm gonna put them in the slide.
Yeah, oh, great. Yeah, Liz, I can do that.
Thanks. So, thank you, Brian. I'm gonna put this, yeah. I'm big on
Policy's gonna get
hyperlinking.
reviewed
There
very
it is.
soon.
Yep.
That's on the agenda as soon as we get through the discipline. Sure. I don't know where the plan is.
Okay. And just to remind everybody, we're meeting on the 20th for this.
What's going on?
Okay. So basically, I have, notes to, we're gonna go back. We're gonna go back and look at 2. We're gonna go back and look at 3.
You could cross out the develop and adopt a district education.
I did. I struck them in the,
Review.
Oh, okay. I don't see it on,
if, you might have to refresh.
Yeah, I don't have the
Yeah.
language.
oh, I do. And I see everything else moving. I just don't see that as,
Yeah,
not
there's
as crossed out, but,
Little latency.
yep.
So yeah, what I did is I kept A, I struck B, but I added a yearly report out. And I'm waiting for, hyperlinks, and I struck C.
Oh, Liz,
I put a
Oh, did you
link
put it
down.
on the bottom?
I put it under
Thank you.
Right, it's presented as
oh, great. Did
Thank
you put the
you.
link in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
the
Okay.
policy. I don't.
Oh, I'll leave it there. I was
I was
gonna
gonna say, it disappeared while I was looking at
Okay,
it.
sorry.
I was just about to click on
I
it.
plucked it out, and then I was like, why? It can stay there. All right, so we're ready for goal 4.
So what I was saying is develop and adopt a district. Is that top line crossed out in your version?
Oh,
'Cause
no.
That's what I was referring to.
Okay, so that needs to be reworded.
Yeah, because we have developed and adopted.
Because I will spell this.
Right, okay.
I am
no
that
sugar, it'll be
person.
okay.
Really?
I did try and
Okay.
refresh, and it still wasn't there.
Oh, God.
Still got it to work.
Okay. It is 8:53.
Okay.
Time to quit.
Well, no, we were talking about trying to stick to our, if we're gonna say 9 o'clock, we're gonna say 9 o'clock, so
Oh.
we're gonna say 9 o'clock.
Oh, I got nervous.
About what?
My bedtime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start again at 4, on 4.
Yeah, that feels like a good.
On Saturday.
On
And
Saturday.
could you,
That's great.
well, actually, never mind. I'll just make sure that Dave reviews it too. I don't know if he's
On-
coming on that Saturday or
Wait,
not.
Saturday, okay, so that's in 2 weeks, and it's 9 to 12?
I thought it was either 9 to 12 or 9 to 11. I don't know
Okay.
if we've,
Last
I have 9 to 12 too,
Okay,
but I
I just
don't
want to make sure
know.
it's not 8.
Last time
No,
we
it's
did
not
9 to
8.
12. I think we said we were keeping.
Yeah,
When is it?
We were-
November 20th?
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Trying to think of why that sounds
That's good.
like a familiar date,
My
unfortunately.
Saturdays get a little busy after Thanksgiving.
We have this.
Right.
My brain will do that to me.
It's someone's
I'm not busy
birthday.
Saturday, I'm busy on the 20th.
Yeah.
I'm real good at that.
Okay. So we've already addressed Transact Other Legal Business. We're back to agenda building. Was there anything that anybody wanted to add? Oh, Ann, you're still here. We let you go last time.
I know, but
And you're still sitting, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, I apologize. I know that sounded terrible. I'm really sorry. So agenda building, bring it back. So maybe we'll have an ad hoc committee meeting.
Yep.
Okay, for our committee report.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll have one from
From
us
both
as
committees.
well.
Okay.
I'd like to hear about what events are coming up, like the play and like sporting. I would like to have a list of what things that are happening that board members can attend.
Okay.
I mean, we've talked about that in community engagement, but it would just be nice to just
On
have that, have a list of that
events.
things.
Like,
That'd
until
be
the next
great.
meeting, like, here's the things that are happening until we all get together again. That'd be really useful.
Has anybody made any school visits, just out of curiosity?
I was in Shrewsbury.
I just planned one to come to Girls Who Code next week.
I did visit Shrewsbury, and I hadn't been in the building in forever, and it felt really odd.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
But yeah.
Matt?
Oh, go ahead.
Maybe next meeting, we can get an update on student reps on the board and where that stands.
Oh, yeah, because
Yes.
that meeting is next week with the students.
We did visit.
Yep.
They were all very attentive. It was really cute.
Good.
And it was very funny because it was like when I was back in high school, there's always that little group that sits in the far back corner in the darkest part of the auditorium, and they never shut up. You know, they were, and then there's, you know, the people sitting right in front. It was really funny. I thought it was very
I feel
funny.
like it also turned into kind of a useful discussion of what students cared about
Wanna
in
see.
the school and what they wanted to see and what things they wanted to know more about. So that was, and it wasn't necessarily relevant all to the board, but I think it was a good opportunity for people to talk.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, they want shop back.
I think it's important.
That was in both groups, pretty well. Okay.
I used to love it when I was in school.
I didn't even mind the sewing and everything else, and cooking. It was my life experience.
Yeah, home ec was always good, and yeah, all that stuff.
Okay. So anything else? No executive session. It is 8:57.